Hello friends, I am Dr. Prashant Khatri from the Department of Anthropology, University of Allahabad, and today I am going to talk on the issue understanding kinship and gender. Now, let us first introduce the subject. Kinship as a field of study has been central to the discipline of anthropology. According to Malinowski, so intense was the focus of anthropologists on kinship systems that they were accused of indulging in kinship algebra. The emergence of kinship studies took place within the larger discipline of law and comparative jurisprudence. If we look into the biological dimensions of kinship, then it can be said that even animals have kinship. However, unlike them, human beings organize social relationships based on kinship. Kinship relations are social relations with certain codes for expected behaviors. These social relations involve a notion of authority, subordination, hierarchy, and obligation. It is largely in this context that gender can be understood within the matrix of kinship systems. Now, with this introduction, let us come to a topic of understanding that how kinship and gender are related to each other. In this context, I would like to put forward the evolutionary perspective of their emergence and interrelatedness. This means that in this section we will try to understand that how kinship and gender are related to each other and how there is an evolutionary perspective behind this interrelatedness. Now, Robin Fox suggested that the birth of fully human kinship was simultaneously the birth of female subordination. This is a very important statement to understand, which says that female subordination began when human kinship grew. This theory suggests that during the hominid evolution, hunting transition was a point of departure. Men hunted big games and women gathered food. Such division of labor needed heightened coalition among men for hunting and among women for gathering. The best coalition available was in the form of consanguinal kins, that means blood relatives. This led to the importance of descent groups, that means people who are related by blood, in both among men and among women. With a strict division of labor, a need to exchange food items came up. This probably led to a trade between male and female, and thus a new set of relations between the two emerged. This trade, according to Fox, is probably at the root of a truly human society. That means Fox is trying to say that a truly human society emerged with a kind of trade-off between the two genders, that is the male and the female, which was related to important items of their diet. To sustain this kind of a relationship, a prolonged interaction between the two sexes was required. This led to an increased competition among the males for the females. The dominant and older males tend to acquire more females, which led to a shortage of females for the younger docile males. This led to an increase in tension between the males. They could not afford this conflict and thus devised rules to acquire mate. Females did not object to the male monopoly and control over female allocation, as they got the supply of necessary meat and protein from the males. Now, this theory can be understood in the form of a flowchart, which says that the hunting transition was a paradigm shift in the development of human kinship. Hunting transition led to strict division of labor, which again went into two directions. And the first direction that gave rise to the rules of descent. This division of labor led to need for coalition, and this led to the emergence of descent as the natural coalition. On the other hand, the strict division of labor led to the exchange of food. This required a trade between male and female. For this, a prolonged interaction was needed. However, this also increased the competition for females. The dominant males acquired more females, and so there was a dearth of females for the docile males. This to some extent led to formulation of certain rules of marriage for a better coordination. So, this theory suggests that both descent and rules of alliance took shape because of a trade-off or a strict division of labor between the two sexes, and this was preceded by the hunting transition in the human history. However, this theory has been criticized. Now, what is the criticism of this theory? Critics say that this evolutionary theory lays too much emphasis on hunting as the turning point. Women scholars of human evolution have proposed a gathering hypothesis. More than hunted games, gathered food items formed the staple diet of the early humans. Sarah Hardy suggests that more than alliance, descent part of kinship is directly linked with female subordination. The earlier form of promiscuous sex was advantageous to the females, because in this it was hard to ascertain the paternity of the offspring. This arrangement was in favor of the females. It provided them and their children with protection from all the males who could be the father of a child. During the development of the society, males devised ways to ascertain the paternity of their children by ensuring seclusion of women. This was the turning point and led to the subjugation of women. Now, with this, we come to the feminist critique of kinship theory and the mutual constitution of gender and kinship. The feminist challenge to kinship theory is basically a critique to certain assumptions that are taken for granted while discussing kinship theories. At the base of kinship theories lies a dichotomy and a separation between the domestic domain and the public or politico-jural domain. It is assumed that the domestic domain is largely marked by the mother-child bond, and the basic constitution of this domain is natural as compared to the public domain, which is constituted of politico-jural facts. Again, it is assumed that the domestic domain is largely involved in fulfilling sexual and childbearing roles, and the public domain is related with authority, power, legal rules, etc. The domestic domain is therefore primarily associated with women and the public domain with men. Feminist anthropologists who first turned to kinship theory for analytical tools soon began to question the assumption of a domestic sphere organized by the affective and moral constraints of the mother-child bond. Feminists have shown it is no longer adequate to view women as bringing to kinship primarily a capacity for bearing children, while men bring primarily a capacity for participation in public life. It has been argued that both kinship and gender studies are an extension of the assumption that there are natural differences between male and female, and the cross-cultural variation of inequalities and kinship usage are only the diverse elaboration and expression of the same natural facts. The biological fact of sexual reproduction lies at the base of this assumption. Both kinship and gender theories are built upon natural difference between men and women. Kinship and gender studies are basically concerned with understanding and cross-culturally comparing the rights and duties that constitute relations between people who differ from each other. The difference between people are taken for granted as it is considered as a pre-social fact. Relations between different people are viewed as constructed socially, but the difference itself is not viewed as social construction. Feminists also criticize kinship theory as they argue that assumptions about gender lie at the core of kinship studies. It is assumed in kinship theories that the creation of human offspring is a result of a heterosexual intercourse, pregnancy, and parturition. Referring to Robin Fox's and Sarah Hardy's theories discussed in the previous section, one can understand that at the heart of these theories lie an assumption of heterosexuality, pregnancy, and parturition. It has been argued that beside these activities, there are several others which are involved in reproduction. Given the wide range of human activities and relationships other than parenthood and marriage that can be viewed as contributing to the production of human beings, why do we focus on only a few of them as the universal basis of kinship? From the above discussion, it follows that there are certain assumptions behind both kinship and gender studies, and therefore they both mutually constitute each other. It also follows from the above account that feminists have criticized theories based on such assumptions and have advocated for transcending such assumptions in the light of analyzing both gender and kinship as social wholes. Now, after understanding the mutuality and interrelatedness of kinship and gender, both in the context of evolutionary framework and feminist critique of kinship theory, we move on to understand that how in different kinship systems gender relations are constituted and negotiated. We now move on to understand that how prescribed rules of residence in different kinship systems and the notion of lineage and clan have bearing over the gender relations. Now, let us discuss kinship systems and gender relations. Differences in kinship structures has important bearing on the way gender relations are perceived and negotiated. For example, women in Southeast Asia are more autonomous as compared to their counterparts in South Asia. This is because of the kind of kinship organization that operate in these areas. Kinship structure affect the choices that are available to women. As far as rules of residence is concerned, it also has an impact over the gender relation, and gender relation can be deciphered from such rules of residence. Rules of residence are important expressions of the principle of kinship. Post-marital rules of residence have important bearing on several dimensions which affect gender relations. For example, we can, with the help of this diagram, understand that the post-marital rules of residence are associated with several other factors that have bearing over the autonomy of women and gender relations. For example, the post-marital rules of residence is associated with rules of inheritance. It is also associated with daughter's share in the parental property, access and control over productive resources, productive and reproductive capacity of women. All these together impact the autonomy of women, and in this ways we can say that gender relations are being guided through these post-marital rules of residence. Now, the lineality also has some bearing over the control over the sexuality of women. The sexuality of women becomes a commodity for consumption within the patrilineal and polyandrous setup. Fraternal polyandry ensures the restriction of the sexuality of women to a household. Patrilineal solidarity is very closely linked to the right over the sexuality of women. Cross-cultural studies suggests that differing kinship structures have an effect over the degree of control over the sexuality of women. Now, we must also keep this in mind that the entire society is undergoing a transformation, and therefore, there is a transformation of kinship patterns and gender relations. Certain societies and communities that were known for a more egalitarian form of gender relations are now transforming into a hierarchical kind. This is largely due to the transformation of their kinship patterns under the influence of the outside world. Gender relations in matrilineal societies are getting transformed due to the influence of the dominant patrilineal societies. Now, to understand this in a better way, let us take some cases. Case 1 is the Nayars of Kerala. Nayar men were made to feel inferior by people who ridiculed the practice of visiting husband to the Tarawad. In patrilineal societies, the dominant ideology is that after marriage, a woman and her children become the responsibility of her husband, and the husband is obliged to look after his family. This ideology is fast catching the imagination of the Nayars, and they are forced to change in accordance with it. This is different from the Nayars institution, where the Tarwad is responsible for the maintenance of women and her children. From a woman's perspective, such a change resulted in subordination and subjugation of women. Case 2 is of non-Brahmin caste of Arulur village. Among the non-Brahmin caste of Arulur village, the matrilineal kin in the form of mother's brother and mother's brother's son holds immense importance in the life of women and her children. Among the Brahmins of Arulur, the patrilineal kins hold more importance. Women are married to complete strangers among Brahmins as compared to the mother's brother's son or mother's younger brother in case of non-Brahmins. However, with the passage of time, even among the non-Brahmins, matrilineal kins are losing their importance and dowry is gaining grounds. Dowry marriage is considered as high status marriage, and thus people are keen to make it a part of their symbolic capital. Now, as far as gender relations and kinship hierarchies are concerned, nutrition also can be taken as a factor that influences or is being influenced by such hierarchies and relationships. There exists a gender discrimination in the context of nutrition that is provided to male and female. The quality and quantity of food available is determined by the gender hierarchy in patrilineal societies. The availability of food is linked to value structures generated through the ideology of kinship and family. Compulsory emotions and proper behavior for both genders are coded within the kinship obligations. This gets exemplified in the practice of Dastarkhan among the Muslims. A definite order of food sharing is followed based upon kinship hierarchies and obligations. Now, in conclusion, we can say that in the unilineal systems of kinship, one of the parent is preferred over the other, as in the patrilineal system, father is preferred, and in the matrilineal system, mother has important position. In a matrilineal system, descent is traced from the mother's side, but the line of authority passes to males through females. The position of women in the matrilineal system is better than the women in patrilineal system. However, evidence suggests that the subjugation and subordination of women is not absent in the matrilineal system. In the matrilineal Khasi tribe, women have been denied the membership of Khasi Darbar, which is a political unit. Now, the discussion so far suggests that kinship and gender constitute each other, and kinship structures have important bearings over the gender relations. Thank you so much.